There are 11 Japanese home rules that Americans break every single day, and together they're the reason your house has a smell that your guests can pick up on the second they walk in, but you can't. Most Americans are breaking at least 3 of these rules without knowing the rules even exist. Japan built a whole system around removing the source of a smell instead of covering it, and most of these rules take under a minute to fix. The first one is a rule you break every time you do the laundry, and it's the reason your favorite towel smells like a wet dog 10 seconds into every shower. And the last one is the object your face is pressed into for 8 hours every night, the one that hasn't been aired, moved, or properly cleaned in the years you've owned it. The first Japanese home rule Americans break is about the washing machine itself. In a Japanese household, laundry comes out the moment the cycle finishes. The drum lid stays open between washes so the inside can dry, the machine gets a cleaning run about once a month, and fabric softener barely exists in the laundry aisle to begin with. In an American house, it goes the other way around, where you throw a load in on hot with a generous cap of Downy, put it all away, and then 2 days later you're blaming the detergent because the towel you wrapped around your waist smells like a wet dog. Your washing machine is a warm, damp box that never fully dries out, and every cap of Downy you've been pouring in for the last 5 years didn't rinse away the way you assumed it did. It's been collecting behind the drum, inside the rubber gasket, and around the little dispenser tray. And that buildup turned into a food source for mold that the closed lid then trapped moisture around and helped grow. You were paying every single month for the product that was making your machine dirtier. Someone in your house mentioned the wet dog smell once, months ago, and you told them it was the towels, so they never brought it up again. They were right. Those little black specks you sometimes peel off a dark shirt aren't lint either. They're mold flaking off the back of a drum you've never once looked behind. The Japanese approach treats the washing machine as a piece of equipment that has to be kept dry, not just a bucket you dump wet things into, which is why the lid stays open, the drum gets a hot empty cycle with vinegar once a month, and softener isn't added at all because the softener residue is what starts the whole problem in the first place. So pull your laundry out within 10 minutes of the cycle finishing, leave the lid open between washes, and once a month run a hot empty cycle with a cup of white vinegar or a drum cleaner. Skip fabric softener for a month and see if the wet dog smell disappears on its own. But even a spotless machine can't undo what your clothes are dragging into the house before they ever hit the laundry basket. That's rule number 2. The second Japanese home rule Americans break is about the clothes on your body, the moment you walk through your own front door. In a Japanese home, outdoor clothes never touch a bed, a couch, a carpet, or an upholstered chair, and people change into a dedicated set of house clothes within a minute of getting home. Americans do it the opposite way, where the shoes come off at the door, but you sit down on the edge of the bed in the same pants that spent all day on an office chair, a bus seat, a restaurant bench somebody sat on in a swimsuit last summer, and the tile floor of an airport bathroom. Think about the last time you got home from being out all day. You dropped your bag, kicked off your shoes, and lay back on the comforter for 10 minutes to scroll your phone, then got up and forgot you ever did it. Your clothes are a delivery system for every surface you sat on today. All of it is now pressed into the weave of your pants, and those pants just spent 10 minutes pressed into your comforter, where it'll sit for the next 8 hours while you sleep on top of it. The surface that gets it worst isn't the one you sat on, it's the pillow your face landed on 10 minutes later, because whatever was on your hands is now on your pillow, and your pillow doesn't get washed for months. Anyone who naps on that bedspread in the afternoon has their cheek pressed into the seat of the airport waiting area you sat in yesterday. The Japanese reasoning is that a home is a sealed system where nothing comes in that hasn't been dealt with at the door, so the shoes come off and the outdoor clothes come off with them, because a shoe on the kitchen floor and a pair of jeans on the duvet are the same kind of problem. Keep a set of house clothes on a hook by the door and change the second you walk in, before you sit down anywhere. It takes about 40 seconds. And if keeping your home clean matters to you, I've put all the Japanese methods for a home that stays clean without spending your weekend scrubbing into this book. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link in the description to get your copy. Now, that's the smell coming out of your fabric. The next rule is about the smell hanging in the air of every room in your house, which you're the only person who can no longer detect. The third rule is one Japanese people follow every single day, and most Americans go entire seasons without doing once, which is ventilation. In a Japanese household, windows on opposite sides of the house get opened 2 or 3 times a day for about 15 minutes each, with the 2 anchor moments being the first 15 minutes after waking and the last 15 before bed, regardless of the season, winter included. Americans do the opposite, where the whole house is sealed, weatherproofed, and double glazed, so the same air keeps cycling through the same HVAC filter for weeks, and the resulting smell gets covered up with a rotating cast of Yankee Candles, Bath & Body Works wallflowers, Glade plug-ins, Febreze, and wax melts. The reason you can't smell your own house is that your nose stops reporting any steady smell within a few minutes of exposure, because the olfactory system only flags changes, not constants, so you went nose blind to your own house, sometime in the 3rd week you lived there. The sources never stopped though, meaning the bodies, the damp towels, the drains, the trash cans, the pet beds, and the aerosolized cooking oil that settles on every surface within 15 feet of the stove. The American response is to lay a scent on top of a scent, twice a week, for years, and because your nose only reports change, the cover-up also goes nose blind, so you buy a bigger one or a stronger one. You weren't deodorizing your house at all, you were paying a subscription to make it harder to notice what was actually in there. A vanilla candle isn't ventilation. It's a lie you're telling yourself in fragrance form. The Japanese reasoning is that the air in a sealed room becomes saturated with the smell of everything happening inside it, and the only way to reset it is to physically push that air out and pull new air in. So open 2 windows on opposite ends of the house for 15 minutes, twice a day, even in winter. The heat loss is smaller than you think, and the change in the air is immediate. This is the rule that fixes the smell your guests notice the second they walk through your front door. That's the air you've been breathing. The next rule is about the dust and residue floating in that air, and the surfaces it's been landing on every single day. The 4th Japanese home rule Americans break is about what you leave sitting on your counters. In a Japanese bathroom or kitchen, bottles and tools hang off rails or magnetized to the tile, so nothing rests directly on a wet surface, whereas the average American bathroom counter is a landscape of a shampoo bottle in the corner of the tub, a bar of soap on the ledge, a toothbrush cup, and a sponge sitting in its own little puddle by the sink, all in the exact same position they've been in for months. Anywhere something rests on a damp surface, a slime starts developing between the object and the counter, made up of soap residue, water minerals, dead skin, and the beginnings of a microbial film. The bottom of a shampoo bottle after 8 weeks is a gray ring you can scrape off with a fingernail, and the base of your soap dispenser is worse, and so is the underside of the toothbrush cup, the base of the knife block, and the base of the coffee maker where the drip tray has been slowly evaporating for a year. These are the exact surfaces small hands touch before those hands go into mouths. The Japanese thinking is that a surface you can't lift off is a surface you can't actually clean, and a wet surface trapped under an object is where the smell starts, so nothing gets set down that could later trap moisture against the counter. So put a hanging bar in the shower with hooks for your bottles, mount the soap dispenser on the wall, use a toothbrush holder that hangs off the tile, and swap the knife block for a magnetic strip. Every object you lift off a counter is one fewer place the smell has to hide. Every rule we've covered so far is something you're not doing. The next one is something you are doing, and you're doing it at the worst possible hour of the week. The 5th Japanese home rule Americans break is about when you clean your floors, and this one is going to feel counterintuitive at first. In a Japanese household, floors get wiped first with a dry floor wiper and vacuum second, and both jobs are done within an hour of waking, before anyone has walked through the house. Americans vacuum on a Saturday afternoon after a full morning of foot traffic, and then go to bed that night in a room they think they cleaned 6 hours earlier. The reason the Japanese timing works and yours doesn't is that dust doesn't actually live on your floors during the day, it lives in the air, because every time someone walks through a room, the dust gets kicked back into suspension and stays there for hours. Overnight, with nobody moving, that airborne dust finally settles onto the floor, so the one moment of the day it's actually catchable is the first hour after waking. The exhaust of your vacuum also throws settled dust back into the air, even on the good ones, so running the vacuum straight across the floor without wiping first just risks to suspend some of the dust you were trying to remove in the first place. A dry floor wiper lifts the settled dust without stirring it, and then the vacuum catches whatever's left. For 10 years, on Saturday afternoons, you weren't removing dust, you were stirring it, and then you went to sleep in it. The Japanese logic is that timing matters as much as method, and cleaning at the wrong time of day makes the job worse than not doing it. So wipe first with a dry floor wiper, vacuum second, and do both within an hour of waking. Do it 3 days a week for a month, and the layer of dust on your baseboards will thin visibly. That's the timing of a weekly job. The next rule is about the timing of a 30-second job, and why the difference between doing it now and doing it later is the difference between a wipe and a chisel. The sixth Japanese home rule Americans break is a principle called suide, which roughly translates to while you're at it. In a Japanese household, small cleaning jobs get folded into things you were already doing anyway. So the stovetop gets wiped while the kettle boils, the faucet gets wiped while you brush your teeth, and no job ever piles up to the point where it needs its own hour on the calendar. Americans do the opposite, letting the stovetop cool, letting the counter dry, letting a soft drop of tomato sauce harden into a fossil, and then spending Saturday morning on their knees with a razor blade dealing with the buildup. Heat and moisture make grease release itself. A stovetop wiped while it's still warm takes a paper towel in 30 seconds, but the same stovetop 3 days later takes a scrubber, a chemical, and 40 minutes. This isn't a discipline problem. It's a physics problem you've turned into a discipline problem by waiting. The reason your Saturday exists at all is that every day of the week you refuse to spend 30 seconds, and that's a debt you've been paying every weekend for years. The Japanese reasoning is that cleaning as a scheduled event is already a failure state, because it means you let something get big enough to need scheduling in the first place. The whole point is that nothing ever gets that big. So keep one microfiber cloth on the counter near the stove and wipe the stovetop while the kettle boils. Keep another one in the bathroom and wipe the faucet while you brush. Try it for a week, and Saturday goes from a job to a formality. Every rule so far has been about a surface you can see. The next one is about the machine blowing air into your face right now, and you've never once thought about what's growing inside it. The seventh rule requires you to physically get up in the next 5 minutes and check something. In a Japanese household, the HVAC filter gets cleaned every 2 weeks, and the whole system runs on fan-only mode for about 30 minutes after cooling, specifically to dry out the interior so mold can't take hold. Americans follow an industry recommendation of every 3 months, and mostly forget to do that too. So the filter above your bed goes half a year between changes while every breath in the house passes through it. The filter isn't just catching dust either. It's catching skin cells, pet dander, cooking aerosols, and the airborne mold spores from every wet spot we've been talking about this whole video. And once the filter gets loaded, it becomes the food source that lets mold colonize the interior of the unit itself. The coil inside your air handler is dark and permanently damp, exactly the environment mold needs, and the filter has been feeding it. Every breath is coming through the mold you grew inside the machine you never cleaned. Meanwhile, you bought an air purifier for your bedroom and plug it in every night and have never once cleaned the machine whose entire job is moving all the air in the house. Pause this video, get up right now, and go find the filter. It's usually behind a grill on your ceiling or on a return air vent in a hallway. Pull it out, take a photo of it, and come back. The Japanese reasoning is that a unit that hasn't been dried is the same environment as a wet towel left on the floor of a warm bathroom, and it's being pushed through the house one breath at a time. So change or clean the filter every month, not every 3, run fan-only mode for 30 minutes after AC use in humid months, and once a year get the coil cleaned professionally. It costs about the same as 3 months of Yankee Candles you no longer need to buy. Which brings us to the one room where waiting is more expensive than anywhere else in the house. The 8th Japanese home rule Americans break is about how often you clean the toilet. In a Japanese bathroom, a single disposable wipe goes over the seat, the rim, the base, and the floor around the toilet every day as a 10-second folding job. Americans clean the toilet only when the bowl starts looking discolored, and by then every flush over the previous 2 weeks has already aerosolized a fine mist across a 6-foot radius. That mist lands on the seat, the base, the tile floor, and most importantly, the wall behind the toilet and the towel hanging on the door hooked 2 feet away. The flush plume has been documented on high-speed video, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Every flush distributes microscopic droplets across the room, and those droplets carry the bacteria that produce the smell. That's the smell you notice in the hallway outside your bathroom and can never locate the source of, because the source isn't the toilet itself, it's the wall behind it and the towel hanging near it. You know that friend who came over for a play date with your kid, used the bathroom, came out looking a certain way, and asked to leave earlier than expected, and you never quite worked out what happened? The Japanese logic is that the toilet isn't a cleaning job at all. It's a wipe, folded into the day the same way you'd wipe a counter, and once it becomes a scheduled job, the smell has already been in the wall for weeks. So keep a tub of disposable toilet wipes on top of the tank and use one wipe a day across the seat, the base, and around it. 10 seconds. The smell you couldn't locate disappears within a week. Those were 8 rules. The last 3 aren't so much rules as they are systems, and they're the reason a Japanese family can skip deep cleaning almost entirely. The 9th rule is about the way every object in a Japanese home has a designated location, not organized as an aesthetic, but organized so you never have to make a decision about where to put it. In the average American home, half the objects don't have a real home. So when you come in through the front door carrying keys, mail, a jacket, and a coffee cup, everything ends up on whatever flat surface is closest to your hand. An object without an address forces a decision every time you hold it. And because you don't want to make that decision, you put it down instead, which is always the counter, the chair back, the entry table, the bed, or the couch. Now the counter can't be wiped, the chair can't be sat in, and the bed can't be made. And the surfaces underneath those piles are where dust, crumbs, and moisture collect, unwiped, for months. On top of all that, 15 minutes a day looking for things adds up to 91 hours a year, which is 2 work weeks you spend every year walking around your own house in a small, private rage at yourself. The Japanese thinking is that clutter isn't objects at all. Clutter is unmade decisions, and the smell in your house is one of them. So follow one rule for a week. When you put something down, ask yourself whether that surface is its home. And if it isn't, decide right now where its home is and put it there instead. In a week, every object in your house has an address, and every surface can finally get wiped without you having to move anything first. That sets up the 10th rule, which is the one that decides whether you wake up tomorrow into yesterday or into a clean start. The 10th Japanese home rule Americans break is about the state you leave the kitchen in overnight. In a Japanese home, the last act of the night is emptying the sink, meaning every dish washed, the strainer emptied and rinsed, a kettle of hot water poured down the drain to break down the day's grease, and the basin wiped dry. Americans go to bed with a plate in the sink, a pan soaking, crumbs on the counter, and the coffee maker still holding the grounds from that morning, telling themselves they'll deal with it tomorrow. The moisture left in the sink overnight is the primary source of the smell around the drain, and the food particles trapped in the strainer for 8 hours start to ferment. The wet sponge is sitting in the wet basin, and between them they grow overnight what you'll be washing tomorrow morning's dishes with. The counter with crumbs on it is a smell source and a bug attractant. So at 7 the next morning, you're walking into the kitchen barefoot on a floor with crumbs on it, past a sink you have to empty before you can even make coffee. And the whole day has started with a small, private loss. The Japanese thinking is that the sink is where the day ends, not where it starts. And if the sink goes to bed dirty, the whole kitchen goes to bed dirty with it. So spend 10 minutes after dinner, non-negotiable. Sink empty, basin dry, counter clear, strainer clean, 1 kettle of hot water down the drain. You wake up into a house that hasn't already started losing. While you reset that room every night, there is 1 object in your bedroom you have never reset. Not once. Not in the years you've owned it. That's the last rule, and it's the biggest one. The 11th Japanese home rule Americans break is about the bed. In a Japanese home, the futon gets aired every single day, folded away in the morning, hung outside in the sun when the weather allows, and aired on a rack indoors when it doesn't, so both moisture and mites get dealt with before they can build up. The American mattress sits on a solid frame with no airflow underneath, hasn't been moved since the day it was delivered, and has been absorbing a full glass of moisture every night through breath and sweat for years. 8 years of 1 glass a night comes out to roughly 730 gallons, which is a bathtub and a half of your own bodily moisture, still inside the object your face is pressed against for a third of your life. If someone else sleeps on that mattress, that's their bathtub and a half too. Same years, same math. The mattress is the sum of everyone who slept on it. A kid's mattress is smaller, but it's had more accidents and juice and vomit at least twice, and a cough syrup spill, and the aftermath of a stomach bug you cleaned up as well as you could at 3 in the morning. Every one of those events is still inside the mattress, and her face is pressed into it every single night. Moisture in a mattress creates the exact environment dust mites need, and their waste is one of the most common indoor allergens on record. So if anyone in the house wakes up with a stuffy nose, this is where to look first, before the pollen count, before the pets, before the humidifier. The Japanese reasoning is that light and airflow are what actually clean a mattress, not detergent and not a spray, and a bed that never sees either turns into an object you can't clean by any other means. So once a week, strip everything off the bed and stand the mattress on its side against the wall for 6 hours, with the windows open the whole time. Wash the pillows every 3 months. They're washable. Wash the comforter every 2. If you're on a solid bed frame, switch to a slatted frame. And if you take one thing from this whole video, take this. Your mattress needs to see sunlight, and yours hasn't. Not one of these 11 rules is cleaning. That's the whole point. Japan didn't find a better way to clean. They found a way to stop needing to. If you want a quick way to work out where to start, there are 3 questions to ask about any habit in your house. Am I removing this, or am I just moving it around? Is this thing wet right now when it should be dry? And is my nose reporting on this, or did it stop reporting on it years ago? The mattress, the filter, the sink, and the ventilation all fail the first 2 immediately, which is why they're the ones worth starting with tonight. None of these habits survived because Americans are careless. They survived because every one of them made sense the first time somebody did it. The candle was cheaper than opening a window in January. The mattress protector felt like a solution. The fabric softener smelled like clean. Nobody went back and checked what those decisions were actually doing over the long run. The Japanese versions aren't harder. They're just built the other way around, designed for the house to stay clean, with convenience as a side effect. Pick one and do the ventilation tonight. 15 minutes, 2 windows, both sides of the house, before bed. You'll notice the difference in the first 10 seconds you walk in tomorrow morning. All right, thanks a lot for watching, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. I will see you in the next video.